We all know a specific kind of successful adult. They are the designated therapist friend, the fiercely hyper-independent achiever who constantly manages everyone else's crises, plans all the group trips, and absolutely never asks for help. But their daily reality is a strange paradox. They can output an incredible amount of productivity at work, yet during moments of actual joy or relaxation, they feel entirely numb and disconnected. This graph represents how their nervous system maps out daily life. For most people, a chaotic baseline is a problem, and a flat line means peace. But for this individual, the internal baseline is already set to jagged, constant chaos. When stillness is introduced, the system flags the quiet as an anomaly and registers peace as danger. Because of this internal chaos, love is processed as a transactional debt. To get a single moment of safety or peace out of the loop, they have to continually feed it with their own usefulness, fixing things just to justify their place in the room. The world looks at this exhaustion and praises it. Society calls these behaviors mature, applauding them for being so responsible and so strong. This exhaustion is a survival loop that began decades ago. It persists because, in truth, they never actually had a childhood. Go back in time to when you were about 7 years old. You are staring into the eyes of a caregiver who is unraveling, maybe from addiction, anger, or simply being too broken to show up. In that environment, a silent calculation happens in your young mind. You realize that if you don't step up and become the emotional glue holding the entire household together, everything will collapse. This scale illustrates a biological imperative: authenticity versus attachment. To survive, a child empties their authenticity to keep attachment anchored. They disappear emotionally, learning to act as the household's emotional thermostat, adjusting their own temperature to keep the adults comfortable. Self-abandonment was a highly intelligent, biological survival instinct. It was the only mechanism available to keep you safe in a chaotic environment. Psychologists call this dynamic parentification. It occurs when the roles reverse entirely, to become the caregiver, to be the peacekeeper, and the ultimate protector. Consistently managing the emotions of adults does permanent structural work to a developing brain. It forces the nervous system into a state of constant threat assessment, always scanning the dark for the next crisis before it arrives. This state is what psychologists call hypervigilance. You learn to walk on eggshells, constantly reading microexpressions and anticipating danger in every conversation. The tragedy of this developmental rewiring is that the brilliant survival strategies of childhood have calcified into the prisons of adulthood. That highly functioning adult persona is largely an illusion. Behind the productivity is a deeply neglected inner child pulling the strings, terrified that if they ever stop working, everyone will abandon them. Breaking this cycle starts with a harsh reality. No external savior is coming. No partner, no career, and no amount of success can reach back in time and rescue that buried child. To avoid dealing with that, many adults enter a phase of intense self-gaslighting. You dismiss your own history, telling yourself that other people had it worse and insisting that you turned out fine. But fine is just another mask. It is a form of toxic positivity used to bypass the deep ache of the innocence you lost while protecting people who should have been protecting you. The first real step toward healing isn't about performing better. It is finally having the courage to honestly witness the trauma that occurred. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything to avoid facing their own soul." In this context, facing your soul requires shadow work. It means consciously turning toward the anger, the sorrow, and the unmet needs of your inner child, rather than running away from them. This deliberate process is known as reparenting. You pause and ask that inner child exactly what they lacked. Maybe it was safety or just a chance to rest and play, and you consciously choose to provide those things to yourself today. The heavy grief that follows is proof that your survival mode is finally fracturing. The frozen self is beginning to thaw. You cannot change the reality that your childhood was traded for attachment, but by choosing softness and truth today, you finally get to write your own future.